They called me selfish. After 15 years of paying their bills, covering vacations I never went on, and saying yes every single time they asked, I was suddenly selfish for asking them to help cover my dad's surgery. When I suggested we all chip in just this once, my mother looked at me like I was a stranger. My sister called me cold-hearted. My brother told me I was acting above the family. I stood there, stunned, wondering how I became the villain in a story I'd been bankrolling for over a decade. But nothing could have prepared me for what I found next. Out of pure instinct, or maybe desperation, I logged into the joint bank account I'd set up to help my parents manage expenses. And right there, in black and white, were years of transfers. Not for hospital bills, not for groceries, but for spa packages, first-class flights, and a down payment on a boat with my name on the funding line. And then came the text message, a screenshot my sister accidentally sent me, laughing about how I was their cash cow and how guilt works every time. Have you ever been used like that by the people who claim to love you most? What would you do if your entire family saw you not as a daughter, but as an unlimited credit card? Let me tell you what I did, and why they'll never call me selfish again. My name is Sandra Mitchell, but everyone calls me Sandy. I'm 56 years old, a corporate attorney based in Dallas, Texas, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the responsible one, the one who got straight A's, the one who graduated from law school with student debt and paid it off, every penny, without asking for help, the one who stayed single, worked weekends, skipped vacations, and still showed up at every family event with gifts, groceries, and gas money. Growing up, I was told that family was everything. That when one of us succeeded, we all succeeded. So when I made partner at my firm at 45, it felt like the whole family won. At least, that's what I told myself. I started helping my parents more consistently. Their retirement income was tight, and I didn't want them worrying about medications or bills. Then came my sister Lisa, divorced with 2 kids. She needed help with daycare, car repairs, school clothes. I wrote checks, quietly, willingly. Then my brother Greg, the entrepreneur with a new business every year. I was his go-to investor. A taco truck in 14, a golf app in 16, a custom sneaker line in 18. They all failed, but I kept showing up with more cash because that's what Sandy does. Every time I hesitated, even for a second, they'd remind me, "You're blessed, Sandy. You don't have kids. You don't need much. You've always had it easier than us. You owe it." And deep down, I believed them. Maybe I did owe them. After all, my parents did pay for part of my undergrad. My siblings helped out while I was in school, watching the dog, mailing care packages, sending holiday cards. So I told myself this was my way of giving back. The truth? I was terrified of being seen as selfish. I knew what they said about my cousin Carla when she stopped sending money to her mom. They called her heartless, cold, ungrateful. I didn't want that to be me. So I kept giving, quietly, consistently. Even when I had to push back my own home renovations. Even when I canceled my dream trip to Italy, twice. Even when my water heater broke and I had to patch it instead of replace it. Because they needed it more. And when my dad's health started declining, heart issues mostly, I didn't hesitate to cover specialists, tests, even a home nurse twice a week. I opened a joint bank account under my name and his, just to streamline things. Every month, I'd deposit between $2,000 and $3,000. Sometimes more, if there were unexpected costs. I never questioned how it was spent, never checked the balance, never thought to. Why would I? This was my family. Until the day I asked them to help, and everything changed. The shift was immediate. It started the moment I asked them to contribute. Dad's latest heart scan showed 2 blocked arteries. The doctor said he'd need a stent procedure. Soon. It wasn't fully covered by insurance, and the out-of-pocket estimate came to a little over $19,000. I told Mom I'd cover the bulk, $12,000. I wasn't asking them to split it equally. I just thought we could all pitch in. Just this once. Lisa folded her arms. I can't afford that right now. You know I'm barely keeping up with rent. Greg scoffed. You're the lawyer. What's $19,000 to you? My mother didn't say anything at first. She just stared at me, like I'd said something offensive. Then she finally spoke. Why would you ask your siblings to pay for their father? That's not their responsibility. That's yours. Mine? It felt like the air got sucked out of the room. I've been funding this family for years, I said quietly. I'm not backing away now. I just thought, maybe we could all share the weight this time. Greg laughed. Actually laughed. You've changed, he said, shaking his head. You used to be the one person in this family we could count on. Lisa chimed in. Yeah. What happened to the Sandy who cared? I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood there, stunned, like someone had flipped the script and I was now the villain for suggesting we operate like a team. I left early that night, drove home in silence, no radio, no phone calls, just that one phrase stuck on repeat in my mind. You've changed. Had I? Or had I just finally asked for something other than blind obedience? The next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling. Something wasn't right. Their reaction, it was too sharp, too rehearsed, like they'd had this conversation before, without me. That's when I remembered the joint account. I hadn't checked it in over a year. The money was always for my parents' needs, medications, groceries, medical copays. Dad didn't use a computer, and Mom didn't like handling online banking, so I managed everything. I logged in, $46.93. That was the balance. I blinked. There should have been over $3,000 in there. I had just made a deposit 2 weeks earlier. I clicked into the transaction history. My heart pounded. There were withdrawals I didn't recognize. Target, Sephora, a resort in Cancun, several Uber charges from Chicago, where neither of my parents had ever been. And then, the transfers. Over and over, month after month, thousands of dollars had been moved out of the account, directly into Greg and Lisa's personal bank accounts. At first, I thought maybe it was for errands, things my parents needed. But it didn't add up, not when I saw a single transfer of $500 to Greg labeled as boat project. A boat. I kept scrolling. Lisa had a Venmo memo that just read, Self-Care Week. I froze, then I opened my text messages. There, at the top of the screen, was a message from Lisa. An image, a screenshot of some funny meme she meant to send to Greg. But just beneath it was another screenshot, one that clearly wasn't meant for me. It showed a group text between her, Greg, and, shockingly, my mother. Greg had written, "She's pushing back about the surgery. Time to guilt her again." Lisa replied, "Don't worry, she always caves. Cash cow's just acting up." And my mother? My mother had replied with a thumbs-up emoji. I stared at that screen for so long I didn't realize I'd started shaking. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the way they saw me, not as a daughter, not as a sister, but as a resource. A faucet they could turn on any time they needed a little luxury, and suddenly all the family dinners, the sweet thank you notes, the "You're a blessing, Sandy," they all felt like lies, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. I felt angry. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I kept seeing those words, "Cash cow's just acting up," flashing in my mind like a neon sign. And my mother's silent thumbs up, like they were in on some cruel little inside joke I was never supposed to read. By sunrise, I was still at my desk, staring at a spreadsheet. I had downloaded 3 years' worth of transactions from the joint account. I color-coded the transfers, green for Greg, pink for Lisa, yellow for untraceable debit card charges. The numbers didn't lie. $86,450.28. That's how much of my money had quietly been siphoned out of that account since I opened it. Money meant for Dad's care. Money I'd worked late nights and weekends to earn. Money I skipped vacations for, skipped life for. I wasn't just betrayed, I was robbed. And it wasn't by strangers. It was by people I once hugged every holiday, people I sent birthday checks to, people I defended when others judged them for not pulling their weight. Now I saw the truth. They never intended to pull any weight. They were too busy riding on mine. I stared at the account one more time. Then I did what I never thought I'd do. I closed it. It took 10 minutes, a quick call to the bank, some identity verification, and just like that, the siphoning stopped. The next step was harder, facing them. I planned it like I would a legal deposition. Facts, documents, no emotion. I invited them over for a family meeting about Dad's surgery. Mom showed up first, all warm smiles and faux concern. Lisa arrived in yoga pants and a venti caramel latte. Greg pulled in 30 minutes late in a rental Tesla. I laid out printouts of every transaction, color-coded, highlighted, dated. They laughed at first, then scoffed. Then Greg said, "Okay, yeah, we took some money. Big deal. You've got more than enough." Lisa leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "You act like we're criminals or something. You're family. Families help each other." My mother said nothing. She just stared at me, her jaw tight. I handed them the screenshot. The group chat, the cash cow joke, the guilt her again line, the thumbs up. Silence. Then Mom finally spoke. Her voice was icy. "You shouldn't have looked through our messages." That was her concern. Not the betrayal, not the lying, not the theft. Privacy. I felt something harden in my chest. A click, a snap, a shift. Whatever sense of family loyalty I'd been clinging to was gone. "I've canceled the account," I said calmly, "and I've spoken with my firm's trust attorney. I'm setting up a managed fund for Dad's care. Only his medical providers will be able to submit requests. You two," I looked at Lisa, then Greg, "will have no access, ever again." Greg stood up. "You can't do that. That's control freak behavior." Lisa rolled her eyes. "God, no wonder you're single." I stood up too. No wonder I'm finally free. And I meant it. They stormed out, Greg shouting something about ungrateful, and Lisa muttering that I'd die alone with a cat. My mother stayed behind. She didn't yell. She just looked at me with the kind of disappointment reserved for strangers. "You think you're better than us," she said. I looked at her, calm and steady. "No. I just finally think I'm not beneath you." That was the last conversation I ever had with her in my home. That day, the dynamic of our family shifted permanently. There would be no going back. And I didn't want to. Because when someone laughs at your loyalty, when they mock your kindness, and call it obligation, you owe them nothing. For the first time in decades, I felt clear. Not angry, not vindictive, just clear. I knew that if I wanted to reclaim my life, it couldn't just be a one-time confrontation. It had to be structural, permanent, legally airtight. So I went into planning mode, the same mode I used to win corporate cases against billion-dollar firms. Only this time, I wasn't defending a company. I was defending myself. Step 1. Secure my finances. I met with my firm's trust and estates attorney, Layla, and told her everything. She didn't flinch. Instead, she looked me in the eye and said, "Let's build a wall they can't climb." We created a formal medical living trust for my father. All future financial support for his health care would be funneled through this trust. Only licensed healthcare providers could file reimbursement requests. The trust would deny any withdrawals that didn't meet strict medical criteria. If Lisa or Greg tried to weasel their way in, automatic denial. I even had Layla assign a third-party trustee, someone neutral. That way, no one could accuse me of gatekeeping or controlling Dad's access to care. He'd be protected. They'd be locked out. Step 2. Clean house. I closed 3 other dormant bank accounts I'd forgotten I'd opened for family emergencies. canceled 2 credit cards I'd stupidly co-signed for Greg and Lisa, reported the abuse of my name to Experian, added fraud alerts, and froze my credit. I also went through my will, removed every mention of Greg and Lisa, replaced them with 2 charities I'd quietly supported for years, one for foster youth, one for low-income senior care. For the first time, my money was truly mine. Step 3. Rebuild my life. I opened a new savings account titled Sandy's Dream Fund. I wrote down 3 things I'd always wanted but postponed: a photography sabbatical through Europe, a backyard garden with actual landscaping and a koi pond, a series of workshops on women's financial independence. I was going to do all 3, but before that, I needed to make one last move. Not revenge, not really, just closure. I wrote one final email to the entire family, clear, short, respectful. Subject: transparency and moving forward. Dear all, after recent discoveries, I've taken the necessary steps to secure my personal finances and ensure that any future support for Dad is responsibly managed through a legal trust. I want to be very clear. I will no longer fund personal expenses for anyone in the family. This is not out of anger. It is out of necessity, for my well-being and peace of mind. I've given from a place of love for many years. That love remains, but I now understand that boundaries are not cruelty. They are protection. Please do not contact me for financial assistance moving forward. I wish you all well. Sandy. I stared at that message for a few seconds, then hit send. The fallout came quickly. Greg replied first. Wow, cold much? Lisa sent one word, unbelievable. My mother didn't respond at all. But something strange happened over the next few days. Silence. No requests, no passive-aggressive voicemails, no guilt bombs, just silence. At first, I mistook it for the calm before the storm. But then I realized they were scrambling, not because I left them, but because they never thought I'd actually do it. They had mistaken my kindness for weakness. But the truth, kindness without boundaries isn't noble. It's self-erasure. And I was done disappearing. Within a month, I booked a ticket to Portugal. I bought a camera I'd been eyeing for years, one I'd always told myself was too indulgent. I stood on the cliffs of Algarve, taking photos of the sunrise, and for the first time in years, I wasn't carrying anyone else's weight, just my own. And it felt light. I was in Kyoto when Lisa finally cracked. I had just finished photographing the bamboo grove at sunrise, peaceful golden light streaming through the trees, when her name popped up on my phone. 3 missed calls, then a voicemail. Her voice was shaky, like she'd been crying. Sandy, please, I messed up, okay? But I'm drowning. I didn't know how bad things would get when you pulled back. The boys are outgrowing their clothes, my rent's overdue, and Greg's not returning my texts. I think he's blaming me for everything. She paused. I'm scared. For a moment, I felt that old reflex, jump in, save them, be the solution. But I didn't. Because fear doesn't make someone sorry. It just makes them desperate. That voicemail wasn't an apology. It was a test, to see if the faucet still worked. I didn't respond. Greg came next. He sent an email with a subject line that read, "We need to talk, like adults." Inside, a long-winded monologue about forgiveness, second chances, and how family should stick together. He conveniently left out any mention of the boat, the spa trips, or calling me a cash cow. He ended with a line that almost made me laugh out loud. I think we both made mistakes, and it's time we move on. We? I deleted the email. 2 weeks later, I got a group message from my cousin Marie, a photo. It was my mother, lying in a hospital bed, Lisa sitting beside her. Caption, "She misses you." The guilt tried to creep back in, but I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and reminded myself I had never left her. They were the ones who walked over me for years, who laughed behind my back, who weaponized my loyalty. And now they missed what I used to give, not who I was. I reached out to the trust manager, confirmed all bills for Mom's treatment were being covered. They were. In full. That was enough. At least once a month now, someone tries a new tactic. Lisa sends old baby pictures of her kids, the ones I used to babysit. Greg shares links to news articles about family reconciliation. Even Mom, in a handwritten letter, said, "I didn't know how much we relied on you until you were gone." Not appreciated. Relied on. That distinction matters. But the climax didn't come until I got back to the States, 7 months after everything exploded. It was Thanksgiving. My cousin Marie hosted. Neutral ground. Small crowd. I almost didn't go, but something in me needed to walk in, not as the Sandy they used to summon with a guilt trip, but as the woman who had found her spine. When I entered, the room went quiet. Lisa dropped her fork. Greg looked like he'd swallowed something sour. My mother clutched her scarf a little tighter, eyes darting anywhere but mine. I nodded politely, sat at the far end of the table, smiled, ate, made conversation with everyone but them. Halfway through dessert, Lisa got up. She walked over to my chair, tears already brimming. "I miss you," she whispered. I looked at her, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the pull. "I wish you well," I said gently. "But I'm no longer available for that role." She blinked. "What role?" "The one you and Greg wrote for me. The family piggy bank. The one who gave and never questioned. That part's been retired." She didn't respond. Just turned and walked away. That moment was the true fallout. Not because it was explosive, but because it was final. No shouting, no drama. Just the quiet realization that I had changed, and they hadn't. And the cost of their betrayal was permanent access. It's been 3 years since I sent that email. 3 years since I closed the account, ended the cycle, and finally put my own name at the top of my priorities list. In that time, I visited 6 continents. Stood beneath the northern lights in Iceland, photographed elephants in Kenya, taught a class of teenage girls in Argentina how to read legal contracts because no one ever taught them they could own something. I also finally renovated my kitchen, built the koi pond, and turned my guest room into a darkroom for developing film. But more than all of that, I rediscovered who I was when no one was draining me dry. I'm not angry anymore. That used to surprise people. "Don't you hate them for what they did?" they ask. No, I don't. Hate would require energy, and I've spent enough energy on people who only knew how to take. What I feel now is peace. A peace that comes from boundaries, from knowing that I can love someone and still say no, that I can be generous without being exploited. I still check in on Dad's trust account. He's doing well. His nurse says he's stable and surprisingly chipper these days. I'm glad. But I've made it clear. I don't do visits out of guilt anymore, only out of choice. And that's the lesson I want to leave you with. When love is twisted into obligation, it stops being love. Generosity without limits becomes a prison. And if the people in your life only value you when you're useful, it's okay to walk away, to protect your peace, to give yourself the care they never did. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge is finally choosing you.